Boarding gate B4 went completely silent. A furious agent violently ripped a first-class ticket from Cassandra's hand, loudly sneering that people like her belonged in coach. Security marched forward, silver handcuffs unclipped and ready. However, this brilliant black mother wasn't just any regular passenger to bully. She quickly produced her phone, making one terrifyingly calm 20-second call. Within 3 minutes, Trans Global Airlines' entire corporate legal department started scrambling. Listen to a true story detailing an epic mistake one arrogant airline ever made. The air inside Chicago's O'Hare International Airport was thick with the usual symphony of frantic announcements, rolling suitcases, and the low hum of thousands of travelers rushing to their destinations. But for 34-year-old Cassandra Pierce, the chaos was nothing more than background noise. Cassandra was a woman who lived her life in high-definition focus. As a senior partner at Whitaker and Associates, one of the most ruthless and elite corporate litigation firms in the country, she spent her days dismantling multi-billion-dollar mergers and striking fear into the hearts of Fortune 500 executives. Today, however, she was just a mother. Holding her hand was her 6-year-old son, Noah. Noah was vibrating with the pure, unadulterated excitement that only a child about to board a massive Boeing 777 could possess. He wore a crisp little polo shirt and carried a small, bright yellow backpack filled with coloring books and action figures. For Cassandra, this trip to London was technically business. A critical deposition awaited her at the end of the week, but she had deliberately turned it into a vacation for Noah. She had worked 80-hour weeks for months, missing bedtimes and soccer games to secure the kind of life where she could afford to drop $10,000 on 2 first-class lie-flat seats across the Atlantic without blinking. They had spent the last 2 hours in the Trans Global Airlines first-class lounge. Even there, Cassandra had noticed the familiar lingering stares, the subtle tightening of the receptionist's smile when Cassandra handed over her black card. The way the bartender had served the older white gentleman next to her, before acknowledging her despite Cassandra having been there first. It was the quiet, insidious hum of microaggressions that Cassandra had dealt with her entire life. She was a highly successful, impeccably dressed black woman in a space where society implicitly told her she was a guest, not a resident. She had long ago learned to armor herself against it, brushing it off like lint on her tailored Alexander McQueen blazer. "Mum, are we really sitting in the pods?" Noah asked, tugging at her sleeve as they made their way toward gate B4. "The ones with the TVs that fold out." "Yes, baby." Cassandra smiled, her sharp features softening instantly. "We have the best seats on the whole plane, seats 1A and 1B, right at the front." "Awesome," Noah whispered, his eyes wide. As they approached gate B4, the crowd was already swelling. The digital display above the desk flashed, Flight 802. London Heathrow, on time. Cassandra checked her gold Cartier watch. It was exactly 45 minutes before departure. Group 1 boarding was about to commence. She guided Noah to the priority lane, bypassing the long, winding line of economy passengers. The priority lane was empty, save for a few business travelers who glanced at her, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Cassandra pulled up the digital boarding passes on her phone. The glowing screen proudly displayed their status, first-class priority boarding confirmed. Behind the desk stood 2 gate agents. One was a young man, frantically typing on a keyboard, looking overwhelmed. The other was a woman in her late 40s, wearing a tightly pinned navy blue scarf and a name tag that read, Beatrice Gable. Beatrice had the kind of rigid, unyielding posture that suggested she enjoyed the tiny sliver of authority her job provided. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are now inviting our first class and Diamond Elite members to board through the priority lane." The overhead speaker crackled. Cassandra smiled down at Noah. "That's us. Ready?" "Ready," Noah cheered. Cassandra stepped up to the scanner holding her phone out. She placed the QR code over the glass. Instead of the pleasant chiming ding that signaled clearance, the machine emitted a harsh, jarring BZZ. The screen flashed a bright, angry red. Cassandra frowned. That's strange. Let me try again. She wiped the screen of her phone, assuming a smudge was interfering with the scanner, and placed it down again. BZZ. Beatrice Gable stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply against the linoleum. She didn't look concerned. She looked expectant, almost smug. I'm going to need you to step aside, ma'am, Beatrice said, her voice dripping with a sickly sweet, practiced condescension. You're blocking the boarding lane for our premium passengers. I am a premium passenger, Cassandra replied, her voice steady and polite. There seems to be a glitch with the scanner. We are in 1A and 1B. Beatrice didn't even look at the phone Cassandra was holding out. Instead, she let out a short, patronizing sigh. I highly doubt that. Let me see your reservation. Cassandra felt the familiar icy prickle of adrenaline at the back of her neck. The lawyer inside her, the apex predator of the boardroom, cracked open an eye. But the mother in her kept her voice smooth. She handed her phone to Beatrice. Beatrice glanced at the screen, then typed something into her terminal. Her fingers hammered the keys with unnecessary force. A receipt printed out from the small machine beside her. Beatrice snatched it, tore it off, and handed it to Cassandra with a tight, triumphant smile. Just as I thought, Beatrice said loudly, ensuring the growing line of first-class passengers behind Cassandra could hear. There's been an equipment change. Your seats have been reassigned to 34E and 34F. That's in the main cabin. Group 5. You'll need to step out of the priority lane and wait until your group is called. Cassandra stared at the flimsy piece of thermal paper. 34E and 34F. Middle seats, right next to the aft lavatories. Excuse me, Cassandra said, her voice dropping an octave, cooling the air around them. I paid over $10,000 for 2 first-class pods. I have the receipts. I have the confirmation. There was no equipment change. I can literally see the Boeing 777 sitting right outside the window. Airline policy dictates that we reserve the right to alter seating arrangements due to operational necessities, Beatrice recited, robotically crossing her arms. We will process a partial refund for the fare difference in 6 to 8 weeks. Now please step aside. You are holding up my first-class line. Before Cassandra could respond, a voice boomed from behind her. Is there a problem here? Cassandra turned. Standing uncomfortably close to her was an older, red-faced white man in a heavy cashmere overcoat. He carried a leather briefcase and reeked of expensive scotch and impatience. No problem at all, Mr. Belmont. Beatrice suddenly beamed, her entire demeanor shifting from hostile to sycophantic. Just a minor ticketing confusion with this passenger. Please go right ahead. Richard Belmont scoffed, eyeing Cassandra and Noah with blatant distaste. People trying to sneak in where they don't belong. Typical. He slapped his paper boarding pass onto the scanner. Cassandra's sharp eyes caught the bold black ink on the paper before it was pulled away. Belmont Richard, seat 1A. The realization hit Cassandra like a physical blow, not of shock, but of sheer, unadulterated outrage. There had been no equipment change. There had been no system glitch. The airline had overbooked, or perhaps this Richard Belmont had shown up at the last minute demanding a seat. And Beatrice Gable had simply decided that the black woman and her child were the easiest targets to downgrade. Seat 1A. Cassandra said, her voice cutting through the noise of the terminal like a diamond through glass. Belmont stopped, turning back to look at her. Excuse me, that is my seat, Cassandra stated, stepping directly into Belmont's path, blocking him from the jet bridge. She did not raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her tone was laced with the kind of lethal authority that made opposing counsel sweat through their suits. I booked that seat 4 months ago. Look, lady, Belmont sneered, his face flushing a deeper shade of red. I am a Diamond Elite Titanium member. I fly this route twice a month. My company spends millions with TransGlobal. If they bumped you, it's because you're low priority. Take your middle seats in the back and be grateful you're on the plane. Mr. Belmont is correct, Beatrice chimed in, stepping out from behind the desk. She was flanked by the younger gate agent, who looked visibly panicked. Ma'am, I am asking you for the last time to step out of the boarding area. You are causing a disturbance. Noah gripped Cassandra's hand tightly, hiding slightly behind her leg. Mommy, what's happening? Are we not going on the pods? Cassandra looked down at her son. She saw the confusion and the rising fear in his eyes. In that microsecond, a switch flipped deep inside Cassandra's soul. She had spent her life playing by the rules, excelling, outworking everyone in the room, just to be treated with a baseline of respect. She was not about to let her son learn that his place in the world was at the back of the line, simply because someone like Beatrice or Belmont decided it was. Cassandra turned her gaze back to Beatrice. The gate agent actually took a half step back, startled by the sheer intensity in the lawyer's eyes. Let me explain something to you, Beatrice, Cassandra said, slowly articulating every syllable with terrifying precision. According to the Department of Transportation, regulations, involuntary denied boarding, or an involuntary downgrade, requires the airline to first solicit volunteers. Did you ask for volunteers? Beatrice blinked, clearly thrown off guard by the legal terminology. That's not relevant here. It is entirely relevant. Furthermore, Cassandra continued, stepping closer to the desk. In the event of an involuntary downgrade, the passenger is legally entitled to a written statement describing their rights and compensation issued immediately at the airport, not in 6 to 8 weeks. You bypassed federal protocols to gift my seats to a corporate VIP because you profiled me and assumed I didn't know my rights. I am not profiling anyone, Beatrice stammered, her voice shrill, drawing the attention of dozens of passengers waiting in the terminal. Phones were beginning to slide out of pockets. The red lights of camera recordings blinked in the periphery. You cancelled my confirmed ticket to accommodate him. Cassandra pointed a manicured finger at Belmont, who was now shifting uncomfortably under the collective gaze of the crowd. That is a breach of contract. I am holding a valid, paid-in-full first-class boarding pass on my application, and I am going to board this aircraft. Cassandra took Noah's hand and bypassed Beatrice, entirely walking past the desk and heading straight toward the mouth of the jet bridge. Hey, you can't do that! Belmont shouted. Security, Beatrice shrieked, grabbing a radio from her belt. I have a security breach at gate B4A. Disruptive passenger is forcing her way onto the aircraft. Send the police immediately. Cassandra didn't stop. She marched down the sloping ribbed floor of the jet bridge, the smell of aviation fuel and sterile air conditioning washing over her. Her heart was hammering against her ribs, but her face was a mask of absolute chilling composure. She knew the law. She knew exactly where the lines were drawn. Until she set foot on that aircraft and refused a direct order from the captain, she was entirely within her rights as a ticketed passenger attempting to claim her legally purchased property. Behind her she could hear the heavy footsteps of Beatrice and Belmont rushing to catch up. You are committing a federal offense, Beatrice screamed, echoes bouncing off the metal walls of the tunnel. Cassandra reached the end of the jet bridge. The massive metallic door of the Boeing 777 was open. Standing inside the pristine, glowing cabin of the first-class section was the lead flight attendant, a tall woman with blonde hair, pulled into a severe twist, wearing a badge that read, Marianne. Marianne had clearly been alerted by the gate desk. As Cassandra approached the threshold of the plane, Marianne stepped forward, physically blocking the doorway with her body. Mom, you need to stop right there, Marianne commanded, holding up her hands. Cassandra halted just inches from the aircraft door. "I am Cassandra Pierce. I am ticketed for seat 1A. I am boarding. The gate agent has informed me that your ticket has been reissued for the main cabin," Marianne said coldly. "If you try to step onto my aircraft without the proper boarding pass for this cabin, I will have you arrested for interfering with a flight crew." The situation had officially reached critical mass. Behind Cassandra, Beatrice Gable arrived, panting, her face flushed with a mixture of exertion and malicious triumph. Richard Belmont was right on her heels, crossing his arms and looking at Cassandra with a smug, self-satisfied grin. "The airport police are on their way," Beatrice announced breathlessly, pointing a trembling finger at Cassandra. "You are going to be placed on the no-fly list for this. You and your kid." At the mention of police, Noah finally broke. The tension, the yelling, the hostile faces. It was too much for a 6-year-old. He buried his face into Cassandra's leg and began to sob quietly. "Mommy, please," Noah cried, his little shoulders shaking. "Let's just go home. I don't want the pods anymore. I don't want the police to come." Cassandra looked down at her weeping child. The anger inside her crystallized into something much colder, much heavier, and infinitely more dangerous. She knelt down on the dirty carpet of the jet bridge, ignoring the furious airline staff, and cupped Noah's face in her hands. "Noah, look at me," Cassandra whispered, softly, wiping a tear from his cheek. "Do you remember what I tell you about bullies?" Noah sniffled, nodding slowly. You don't back down. You make them follow the rules." "Exactly," Cassandra said, kissing his forehead. "Mommy is going to make sure they follow the rules. You have nothing to be afraid of. I promise you." She stood up. The maternal softness vanished, replaced entirely by the senior partner of Whitaker and Associates. Cassandra Pierce had destroyed multinational corporations for breakfast. A petty gate agent and a prejudiced flight crew were less than dust to her. She took 3 steps back from the aircraft door, giving Marianne the physical space required by law so as not to be accused of physical intimidation. "You have made a grave error," Cassandra said, her voice echoing in the confined space of the jet bridge. She looked at Beatrice, then at Marianne, and finally at Belmont. "You have assumed that because I am a black woman, traveling alone with her child, I lack the resources to defend myself against your blatant, discriminatory breach of contract." "Oh, save the race card," Belmont groaned, rolling his eyes. "Just arrest her and let's go. I have a meeting in Mayfair tomorrow." "We're not playing games here, Mum," Marianne said, her tone dripping with fake sympathy. "Surrender your boarding pass, accept your new seat, or I am authorizing the police to remove you in handcuffs." "You won't be doing anything of the sort," Cassandra replied softly. She reached into her designer blazer and pulled out her phone. She didn't dial a customer service hotline. She didn't open Twitter to complain. She opened her contacts and selected a number that was meant to be used only in absolute corporate emergencies. The number belonged to Harrison Whitaker. Harrison Whitaker was a legend in the legal world. He was the founder of her firm, a man who played golf with senators and had federal judges on his speed dial. But more importantly, for this exact moment, Whitaker and Associates was the primary outside legal counsel for the largest aerospace manufacturing company in the world, the very company that Transglobal Airlines leased 70% of its fleet from. Including the Boeing 777 they were standing in front of. The phone rang twice. "Cassandra," Harrison's gravelly voice answered. "It's Sunday. You're supposed to be over the Atlantic." "Harrison, I have a situation at O'Hare." Cassandra said, her eyes locked dead onto Beatrice's face. "Are you all right? Is Noah okay?" Harrison's tone shifted instantly from casual to sharp. "We are physically unharmed," Cassandra said, clearly ensuring her voice projected. "But Transglobal Airlines has just engaged in a discriminatory, involuntary downgrade at Gate B4, breaching a $10,000 contract to seat a corporate VIP. The gate agent, Beatrice Gable, and the lead flight attendant, Marianne, are currently threatening me with federal arrest in front of my child to cover up their violation of DOT regulations. Beatrice scoffed loudly. Who are you calling your lawyer? You think a lawyer is going to stop a flight? Cassandra ignored her. Harrison, I need you to make a call. There was a brief pause on the line. When Harrison spoke next, his voice was pure ice. What do you need, Cassandra? I want the CEO of Trans Global Airlines, Benjamin Howell, on the phone with the station manager of O'Hare within the next 3 minutes. Cassandra ordered, her voice echoing with devastating authority. Remind Mr. Howell that our firm is currently negotiating the lease renewal for 32 of his wide-body aircraft, and tell him that if my son and I are not seated in 1A and 1B, immediately I will personally file a federal discrimination lawsuit. By morning, I will subpoena the gate security footage, and I will freeze the aircraft lease negotiations, pending a full Department of Justice inquiry into their passenger handling practices. The silence in the jet bridge was sudden and absolute. Belmont's smug smile faltered. Marianne's hand dropped from the doorframe. Beatrice stared at Cassandra, her mouth slightly open, a sudden creeping realization beginning to dawn in her eyes that she might have just kicked a hornet's nest of apocalyptic proportions. Give me 2 minutes, Harrison Whitaker said, and hung up. Cassandra lowered the phone. She didn't put it away. She simply held it in her hand, staring down the 3 people who had tried to humiliate her. Now, Cassandra said, her voice a deadly whisper. We wait. At the top of the jet bridge, the heavy doors burst open, and 4 armed airport police officers marched in their radios, squawking. They pushed past the lingering passengers, their hands resting on their utility belts, faces grim. Who's the disruptive passenger? The lead officer barked, zeroing in on Cassandra. Beatrice's eyes lit up with renewed confidence. She pointed a trembling finger at Cassandra. Arrest her. She's threatening the airline. But before the officer could take a single step toward Cassandra, the radio on his shoulder exploded with static, followed by a frantic, screaming voice from dispatch. Unit 4, stand down. I repeat. Unit 4, stand down. Do not touch the passenger. The officer froze. At the exact same moment, the heavy red emergency phone mounted on the wall inside the aircraft door, the phone reserved solely for direct critical communication with corporate headquarters, began to ring with a shrill, piercing alarm. Marianne stared at the red phone, the color completely draining from her face. Cassandra Pierce simply smiled. You might want to answer that. The emergency phone mounted inside the bulkhead of the Boeing 777 was entirely unremarkable to the average passenger. Encased in a small, recessed plastic cubby, painted a sterile, industrial red, it looked like a relic from a bygone era of aviation. But to flight crews it was the God phone. It was hardwired directly to Trans Global Airlines' Global Operations Control Center. It bypassed standard radio frequencies, weather interference, and standard dispatchers. When the red phone rang, it meant an aircraft was on fire, a bomb threat had been verified, or the federal government was ordering the plane grounded. It had never in Marianne's 18-year career as a flight attendant rung during the boarding process. The shrill mechanical blare sliced through the heavy tension of the jet bridge like a scalpel. The 4 armed airport police officers who had frozen at the dispatch order exchanged bewildered glances. Marianne. Beatrice Gable stammered, her voice, stripped of all its previous bravado, reduced to a terrified squeak. Marianne, what is that? Marianne swallowed hard, her throat suddenly bone dry. She looked from the red phone to the impassive, unyielding face of Cassandra Pierce and back to the phone. Her hands trembled as she reached out, unclipped the heavy receiver, and brought it to her ear. Lead Flight Attendant Marianne speaking, she said, her voice shaking so badly the words barely formed. Even from 3 feet away, Cassandra could hear the sheer volume of the voice detonating on the other end of the line. It was not the standard measured tone of a dispatch operator. It was the furious, panic-laced roar of a man whose career was flashing before his eyes. "What in the name of God is happening at Gate B4? The voice bellowed through the earpiece. "Sir," Marianne stuttered. "I'm sorry, who is this?" "This is Oliver Croft, Executive Vice President of Global Operations. I have the CEO, Benjamin Howell, on another line with the chairman of Whitaker and Associates, and they are threatening to freeze a $3 billion fleet lease because you and your gate agent are attempting to arrest a senior partner." Marianne's knees actually buckled slightly. She grabbed the frame of the aircraft door to steady herself. The blood drained from her face so fast she looked vaguely translucent. "Mr. Croft," Marianne gasped. "There was an equipment swap and the gate agent Beatrice, she—" "Shut up," Croft screamed. "Do not say another word. Do not try to defend this. You did not have an equipment swap. I am looking at the flight manifest right now. You illegally bumped a full-fare passenger to accommodate an upgrade. You violated federal involuntary denied boarding protocols, and you did it to the one woman in Chicago who can personally bankrupt this airline." In the background of the call, Marianne could hear a secondary voice, a deeper, calmer, but infinitely more terrifying voice. It was Benjamin Howell, the CEO himself, shouting at someone else in the boardroom. "Get the station manager down there right now. If that plane leaves without Cassandra Pierce in seat 1A, I am firing the entire Chicago O'Hare management team." Oliver Croft came back on the line, his breathing ragged. "Listen to me very carefully, Marianne. You are to treat Miss Pierce as if she owns the aircraft, because if she decides to pursue this, she practically will. You are to immediately seat her in her original booking. You are to grovel. You are to offer her whatever she wants. Do you understand me?" "Yes, Mr. Croft," Marianne whispered, a single tear of absolute terror leaking from the corner of her eye. But Richard Belmont is already boarded in 1A. "Then drag him out by his collar," Croft exploded. "I don't care if he's the Pope. Get him out of that seat. The O'Hare station manager is sprinting down the terminal right now. Do nothing until he arrives. Do not let those police officers touch her." The line went dead with a loud click. Marianne slowly hung up the red receiver. She turned back to face the jet bridge. The atmosphere had undergone a catastrophic shift. Beatrice was hyperventilating, clutching her clipboard to her chest like a shield. Richard Belmont was tapping his foot, completely oblivious to the corporate nuclear strike that had just been ordered against him. "Well," Belmont demanded, checking his watch. "Are you going to arrest this woman, or what I'm missing my pre-flight champagne?" Before Marianne could respond, the heavy steel doors at the top of the jet bridge slammed open again. Footsteps thundered down the sloping tunnel. It was not a walk. It was a desperate, chaotic sprint. A middle-aged man in a soaking wet suit, his tie flying over his shoulder, was running toward them with the sheer desperation of a man running from a burning building. His face was purple with exertion, and he was waving his hands wildly. This was Gilbert Foreman, the station manager for Trans Global Airlines at O'Hare. He oversaw 3,000 employees, and he looked like he was about to vomit. "Stop!" Gilbert screamed, his voice cracking, as he skidded to a halt in front of the police officers, nearly knocking Beatrice over in the process. "Everyone stand down. Nobody move." Gilbert doubled over, resting his hands on his knees, gasping for air. His chest heaved as he fought to regain his breath. He looked up, his wild, terrified eyes scanning the small crowd until they locked onto Cassandra. Cassandra stood perfectly still, her posture immaculate, one hand resting protectively on Noah's small shoulder. She raised an eyebrow. "Ms. Pierce!" Gilbert wheezed, straightening up and frantically smoothing his disheveled hair. "Ms. Cassandra Pierce." "That would be me," Cassandra replied softly. I'm Gilbert Foreman. I am the station manager for O'Hare." He stammered, extending a trembling hand. When Cassandra made no move to take it, he quickly withdrew it, wiping the sweat from his forehead. "Ms. Pierce, on behalf of the CEO of Trans Global Airlines, Benjamin Howell, and the entire executive board, I am so profoundly, deeply sorry. There has been a catastrophic, inexcusable error." The silence that followed the station manager's apology was heavier than a bank vault door. Beatrice Gable let out a small, strangled gasp. Her clipboard slipped from her numb fingers, clattering loudly against the metal floor of the jet bridge. The reality of her situation was finally crashing down upon her. She hadn't just bullied a vulnerable mother. She had picked a fight with a corporate leviathan, and her bosses were currently sacrificing her to save the ship. "Error," Beatrice whispered, looking at Gilbert. "Mr. Foreman." She was refusing to step aside. She was disruptive. Gilbert turned to Beatrice. The terrified, groveling demeanor he had shown Cassandra vanished, replaced by the lethal fury of a middle manager who realized his subordinate had just ruined his life. "You are suspended, Beatrice." Gilbert snarled, stepping into her personal space. "Effective immediately. Pending a full recorded termination hearing tomorrow morning. Hand over your badge." "What?" Beatrice shrieked, her face twisting in shock. "You can't do that. I was protecting a Diamond Elite member. Mr. Belmont needed a seat. I don't give a damn about Mr. Belmont." Gilbert roared the sheer volume, making Noah flinch. Cassandra quickly pulled her son behind her legs, shielding him from the escalating chaos. Gilbert pointed a shaking finger at the terminal doors. "Give me your badge and get out of my sight before I have these officers arrest you for violating federal DOT guidelines." Trembling violently, Beatrice unclipped the plastic badge from her uniform. Tears of humiliation streamed down her heavily powdered cheeks. She handed it to Gilbert, shot one venomous, tear-soaked glare at Cassandra, and turned, fleeing up the jet bridge as fast as her heels would carry her. "Now wait just a damn minute," Richard Belmont growled, stepping forward, his chest puffed out in indignation. The sheer audacity of the situation was finally penetrating his thick layer of entitlement. "You're suspending her for helping me. Do you have any idea who I am, Foreman? I am Richard Belmont. I am the VP of Acquisitions for Northgate Capital. I fly 300,000 miles a year with this airline." Gilbert took a deep breath, trying to steady his shaking hands. "Mr. Belmont, I apologize for the inconvenience, but there has been a ticketing error. Seat 1A doesn't belong to you. It was legally purchased by Ms. Pierce months ago." "I don't care when she bought it," Belmont shouted, spit flying from his lips. He pointed at Cassandra. "She's a nobody. I am a Diamond Elite Titanium member. My assistant called your VIP desk an hour ago, and they assured me they would bump someone to get me on this flight. I am not flying in the back of the plane with the cattle." Cassandra, who had remained terrifyingly silent for the last 5 minutes, finally spoke. "Fascinating," Cassandra said. Her voice was no longer a whisper. It was the cold, clinical tone of a prosecuting attorney holding a smoking gun. "So let the record reflect that you actively conspired with an airline representative to illegally revoke a confirmed booking, bypassing the federally mandated solicitation for volunteers, entirely because you believe your frequent flyer status supersedes contract law." Belmont sneered at her, his face a mask of ugly, unfiltered arrogance. "This is the real world, sweetheart. Wealth and status dictate the rules, not little rule books. I'm taking seat 1A, and you're going to take your kid to coach where you belong." He turned his back on Cassandra and began to storm toward the aircraft door. "Officers," Gilbert Foreman barked, his voice cracking like a whip. The 4 airport police officers who had been watching the corporate drama unfold with wide eyes snapped to attention. "Mr. Belmont is no longer a ticketed passenger on Flight 802. Gilbert stated, his eyes boring into Belmont's back. "His boarding pass is hereby revoked. If he attempts to board that aircraft, he is trespassing on federal property. Belmont stopped dead in his tracks. He slowly turned around, his face flushing a dangerous shade of magenta. "You are revoking my ticket. You're kicking me off the plane." "You are a disruptive passenger, sir," Gilbert said, echoing the exact phrase Beatrice had used against Cassandra just 10 minutes prior. "You are refusing a lawful instruction from airline management. Step away from the aircraft." "This is an outrage," Belmont roared, entirely losing his composure. He looked like a toddler throwing a tantrum in a tailored suit. "I will have your job, foreman. I will call Benjamin Howell myself. I will strip this airline of all Northgate Capital's travel contracts." "Go ahead," Gilbert said, wearily, wiping his brow. "Mr. Howell is the one who ordered you removed. Now please step away." "No," Belmont screamed, grabbing the handrail of the jet bridge. "I am getting on this plane. I have a meeting in London." It was the opening the police officers needed. Having stood idly by while a mother was harassed, they were more than eager to assert their authority on a belligerent, screaming man who was actually breaking the law. The lead officer stepped forward, his hand resting heavily on the handcuffs at his belt. "Sir, you have been denied boarding. You need to come with us right now, or you will be placed under arrest for criminal trespass and interfering with flight operations." "Don't you dare touch me!" Belmont spat, shoving the officer's hand away. That was his final mistake. In a flurry of motion, 2 officers grabbed Belmont by the arms, twisting him around and slamming him face first against the ribbed metal wall of the jet bridge. The heavy metallic clink of handcuffs ratcheting shut echoed loudly. Belmont yelped in pain, his briefcase dropping and spilling expensive leather-bound notebooks and pens across the dirty carpet. "Richard Belmont, you are under arrest," the officer stated coldly, patting the struggling man down. "You have the right to remain silent, though I highly suggest you start using it immediately. You're making a mistake. She's the one you should be arresting." Belmont whined his bravado, entirely crushed under the weight of the police officers. "Look at her. Does she look like she belongs in first class? Get him out of here," Gilbert ordered, waving his hand in disgust. The officers hauled the sputtering, furious millionaire back up the jet bridge, his polished Italian leather shoes dragging awkwardly on the floor. His shouts faded into the distance, leaving the entrance to the aircraft completely blissfully quiet. Gilbert Foreman took a long, shuddering breath, straightening his tie. He turned back to Cassandra, who was still standing in the exact same spot, her posture unbroken, her expression unreadable. "Ms. Pierce," Gilbert said, his voice dripping with absolute reverence. The path is clear. Seats 1A and 1B have been completely sanitized and prepped. Your luggage has already been verified as priority loaded. Is there absolutely anything else we can do for you?" Cassandra looked down at Noah. The little boy was staring wide-eyed up the jet bridge where the angry man had just been dragged away in handcuffs. "Noah," Cassandra said gently, her voice instantly softening. "Are you okay, baby?" Noah looked up at his mother. A slow, awe-struck smile spread across his face. "Mommy, you really are a superhero." Cassandra let out a small, genuine laugh, the first crack in her armor since they left the lounge. "No, sweetie, I'm just a lawyer. Come on, let's go see those pods." She took his hand. As they stepped toward the aircraft door, Gilbert scrambled out of the way, bowing slightly. Standing in the doorway waiting for them was Marianne. The flight attendant looked as though she was about to face a firing squad. Her hands were clasped tightly in front of her, and she was forcing a smile so wide and unnatural it looked painful. "Welcome aboard Flight 802, Miss Pierce Master Noah," Marianne said, her voice shaking slightly. "It is an absolute honor to have you flying with us today." Cassandra paused at the threshold. She didn't glare at Marianne. She didn't yell. She simply looked the flight attendant directly in the eyes. It was a look of quiet, absolute dominance. Marianne, Cassandra said softly. Yes, ma'am, Marianne squeaked. My son likes apple juice, Cassandra stated, with exactly 2 ice cubes. I drink sparkling water with a twist of lime. We will not be disturbed during the meal service as he needs to sleep. And if anyone on this flight, passenger or crew, speaks to me with anything less than absolute professional courtesy, I will ensure that the FAA conducts an audit of your entire cabin crew division. Am I perfectly clear? Crystal clear, Ms. Pierce. Marianne nodded frantically. Right this way, please. They stepped into the first-class cabin. It was an oasis of tranquility. The heavy sound-dampening walls of the Boeing 777 blocked out the noise of the airport. Soft, ambient blue lighting illuminated the massive private suites. The seats were upholstered in rich, cream-colored leather, with massive entertainment screens and sliding privacy doors. Noah gasped, dropping his yellow backpack on the floor. Mom, it's like a spaceship. He scrambled into seat 1B, immediately finding the electronic control panel and pressing a button that made the footrest hum and rise. Cassandra watched him, the heavy knot of tension in her chest finally dissolving. She placed her designer bag in the overhead compartment and sank into seat 1A. The leather was soft, the seat incredibly spacious. It was exactly what she had paid for. It was exactly what she deserved. Before she could even buckle her seatbelt, a shadow fell over her suite. Cassandra looked up. Standing in the aisle was a distinguished-looking man in his late 50s, wearing the crisp white shirt, 4 gold stripes, and heavy blazer of an airline captain. He held his pilot's hat under his arm. His name badge read, Captain Douglas Wade. Ms. Pierce. Captain Wade said, his voice deep and sincere. He did not look terrified like Gilbert or Marianne. He looked deeply, genuinely ashamed. I am the pilot in command of this aircraft. I was just briefed by operations on what transpired at the gate. Cassandra remained silent, waiting. As the captain, everything that happens on my aircraft and the gateway leading to it is ultimately my responsibility. Wade continued, bowing his head slightly. The way you and your son were treated was racist, classist, and completely unacceptable. It goes against everything I believe in as a pilot. I have already filed an internal union grievance against the gate staff involved. Cassandra's expression softened slightly. I appreciate that, Captain. I have 2 daughters of my own, Wade said, looking over at Noah, who was now fully engrossed in an animated movie on his screen. If someone had treated them the way my crew treated you today, I don't know if I would have had the restraint you showed. I just wanted to personally apologize, and to assure you that for the next 8 hours you are the most important people on this airplane. Thank you, Captain Wade, Cassandra said, offering him a small, polite nod. Have a safe flight. We will, ma'am, Wade replied, putting his hat back on. He turned and walked back into the cockpit, the heavy reinforced door clicking shut behind him. A moment later, Marianne practically glided over to the suite, carrying a silver tray. On it rested a crystal glass of sparkling water with a lime twist and a smaller glass of apple juice with exactly 2 perfectly square ice cubes. Beside the drinks was a small velvet-lined box containing high-end noise-cancelling headphones and a sealed amenity kit from a luxury French skincare brand. Your drinks, Miss Pierce, Marianne whispered, placing them down gently. And the chef wanted me to inform you that we have held the premium filet mignon for you, should you choose to dine with us tonight. That will be fine, Marianne, Cassandra said, taking a sip of the water. Thank you. Marianne retreated as quickly as she could without running. Cassandra reached over the low partition dividing their seats and stroked Noah's hair. The plane's engines began to whine, a low, powerful vibration traveling up through the floorboards. Outside the window, the terminal building began to slowly slide backward as the massive aircraft pushed back from the gate. She pulled out her phone one last time, There was a text message from Harrison Whitaker. Just spoke with Howell again. O'Hare station manager assures me the problem is handled. Have a good flight, Cassandra. We'll finalize the Boeing lease when you return. Cassandra smiled. She typed back a quick reply. Handled perfectly. See you next week. She switched her phone to airplane mode, slipped it into her blazer pocket, and pressed the button to recline her seat. The battle was over. The corporate titans had bowed. The bullies had been carried away in handcuffs. Now there was nothing left to do but fly. The Boeing 777 ascended through the thick gray cloud cover of Chicago and broke out into the blinding crystalline sunlight of the upper atmosphere. Cruising at 35,000 feet, the first-class cabin was a sanctuary of unparalleled quiet. The low, steady hum of the massive Rolls-Royce engines was nothing more than a gentle, white noise lullaby, entirely masking the chaos that had transpired just an hour before. Cassandra Pierce sat back in the buttery cream leather of Seat 1A, a glass of perfectly chilled vintage Bordeaux resting on the console beside her. Across the low partition, Noah was fully immersed in his own world. He had finished his apple juice, devoured a warm, freshly baked chocolate chip cookie, and was now deeply captivated by the glowing screen of his entertainment system, wearing his oversized, noise-cancelling headphones. The mother in Cassandra watched him with a profound sense of relief. The trauma of the jet bridge, the yelling, the police, the glaring racism disguised as policy had not broken him. She had shielded him from the worst of it, transforming a moment of terrifying vulnerability into a masterclass on standing one's ground. Noah wouldn't remember this trip as the day he was told to go to the back of the line. He would remember it as the day his mother made the world follow the rules. The flight progressed with flawless, almost theatrical precision. Marianne, the lead flight attendant, performed her duties with the quiet desperation of an employee trying to save her pension. When dinner was served, Cassandra's filet mignon was cooked to a flawless medium rare, accompanied by roasted asparagus and a delicate truffle puree. Noah's meal was served on specially warmed plates, customized to his exact picky 6-year-old preferences. Throughout the 8-hour journey, Marianne never spoke above a respectful murmur, ensuring Cassandra's glass was never empty, and her privacy was entirely absolute. As the cabin lights dimmed to a soft, starlit blue for the overnight portion of the flight, Cassandra reclined her seat into a fully flat plush bed. She pulled the thick duvet-style blanket over herself. The adrenaline that had fueled her through the gate standoff finally evaporated, leaving behind a deep, satisfying exhaustion. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in weeks, slept soundly. When Cassandra woke, sunlight was streaming through the aircraft windows, illuminating the sprawling historic patchwork of London below. The descent into Heathrow Airport was smooth, the heavy landing gear touching down with barely a jolt. As the aircraft taxied to Terminal 5, Captain Douglas Wade's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to London. On behalf of the entire crew, we apologize for the delay at departure, but we hope your flight was nothing short of exceptional." The moment the seatbelt sign chimed off, Marianne was at Cassandra's suite, gently pulling back the privacy divider. "Ms. Pierce, we have a private jet bridge exit arranged for you. You will disembark first." Cassandra helped Noah with his yellow backpack and took his hand. As they walked toward the exit, Captain Wade stood by the cockpit door, offering them a sharp, respectful salute. Stepping off the plane, Cassandra expected the standard bustling terminal of Heathrow. Instead, standing at the very top of the jet bridge, cordoned off from the public, was a tall, sharply dressed British man holding a sleek black iPad that simply read Pierce. "Ms. Pierce?" the man asked, stepping forward with a crisp, polite bow. "I am Alistair Thompson, Vice President of European Operations for Trans Global Airlines. Mr. Howell, our CEO, instructed me to meet you at the gate personally." Cassandra raised an eyebrow, adjusting her designer blazer. "Mr. Thompson, I see word travels fast." "Faster than our aircraft, ma'am," Alistair said with a small, self-deprecating smile. "I have a private buggy waiting to take you through an expedited diplomatic customs lane. Furthermore, your baggage has already been retrieved by our concierge team and loaded into a private car waiting curbside." As they rode through the sprawling terminal on the electric cart, bypassing thousands of weary travelers, Alistair handed Cassandra a thick, embossed envelope. "From corporate headquarters," Alistair explained softly. "Inside, you will find a full, unconditional refund for your original ticket price, processed this morning. Additionally, both you and your son have been upgraded to lifetime Diamond Elite Titanium status. You will never fly commercial with us again without the highest level of priority." Cassandra slid the envelope into a bag. "And the staff involved?" "Beatrice Gable was officially terminated an hour ago for violating Department of Transportation regulations." Alistair confirmed, his tone professional and uncompromising. "Furthermore, you will be pleased to know that Richard Belmont's arrest made the early morning news cycle in Chicago. Northgate Capital issued a press release 30 minutes ago confirming they have placed him on indefinite administrative leave pending a behavioral review." Cassandra looked down at Noah, who was happily swinging his legs off the side of the moving cart, pointing at the massive planes outside the windows. The bullies had not just been stopped, they had been entirely dismantled. The system that had tried to crush her had been forced to bend the knee. They breezed through customs in less than 3 minutes. Stepping out into the cool, damp London air, a sleek, black, chauffeur-driven Jaguar was idling at the curb. The driver held the rear door open. "Enjoy London, Miss Pierce," Alistair Thompson said, taking a respectful step back. "And once again, on behalf of Transglobal Airlines, we are profoundly sorry." "Thank you, Alistair," Cassandra said smoothly. She climbed into the plush leather interior of the Jaguar, pulling Noah in beside her. The heavy door clicked shut, sealing them inside their private, luxurious bubble. Noah pressed his face against the window, his eyes wide as the car pulled away from the airport and headed toward the historic skyline of the city. "Mom," Noah whispered, entirely mesmerized. "Are we going to rule London, too?" Cassandra smiled, leaning back into the headrest and closing her eyes. "Just for the week, baby. Just for the week." If Cassandra's story of shutting down corporate bullies demanding respect and protecting her son's dignity resonated with you, do not let this message stop here. We all deserve to take up space and demand what we are owed without apology. Like this video to show your support for Cassandra's incredible, undeniable victory. Share this story with your friends, family, and anyone who needs a powerful reminder to never back down when they know their rights. And make sure to subscribe to our channel for more thrilling, real-life stories of everyday people turning the tables on corrupt systems.